Banya, sorry, sir. I believe you're in the same category.
Well, so my experience working all over Africa is that continuous policy dialogue as a continuous thing, and you can only do so through a large public, private, society, community, what do you call it, partnership. And partnership means what it means. It means the private sector, the non-government sector will be there during all the value chain process of education, and not just we finish, come and give us money. Two, part of it is also that the private sector will do less of ad hoc localized things, but focus on systemic things. Invest in something that will have a good effect on the system. And finally, for you to
Professor Banja,
for you to
I've
do
been
that,
reprimanded by the
government
audience
will
now.
also put its house in order.
Sorry, I better pick up that last thing you said. Who should put their house in order?
Yes, the education house in order.
The education house needs to be put into order. Thank you very much. Dr. King.
I'm very tempted to say, follow what Professor Obani had said, but I'm going to, because I think that is very important. But really, one is that at age 15 or 16, just before young people enter university or post-secondary, and the time when they've finished basic education, I think it's a good time to check the pulse of the education sector. By that, I mean measuring results, because I think measuring results across the whole of Nigeria is a very important tool for continuing this kind of discussion and sends a very strong message that the federal government is serious about improving the quality of education.
Thank you very much. Measure the results of the Nigerian education system. Alex, if I can now move to the other side of the room, sir.
All right, thank you. I think one thing that is important is the quality of the teachers we have. And that quality has a whole lot to do with the output. And if we go back to history, when I was in primary secondary school, we had Indian teachers, teachers from Bangladesh and all that. So I like that kind of competition to come back. The government should declare an emergency in terms of getting the right brains into the country. There's something that we call brain drain. If you go out of the country, even to a place as close as Ghana, you have a lot of Nigerian teachers. You go to the US, you go to even China, you have the best of the Nigerian people teaching in those places. So I think that we need to declare an emergency and ensure that we have the right kind of teachers who taught us in those days. And the whole curriculum will change and we would have better output than we have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul.
Yes, well, a few things I could say, but I'll only stick to one. And I think building upon what was just said, I think that it would be important to benchmark what's happening here and learn from the best practices in other countries. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in Nigeria on every single issue. People have developed creative solutions that have worked in similar countries. And so benchmarking yourselves and having more exchanges between Nigeria and China or India or Brazil or other parts of the world, I think is extremely important, because that gives you ideas of other ways of doing things, which when you stay in your own country, in your own institution, at a certain point in time, you despair and you say, things will never change. They'll always be like this. When you go abroad and see it differently, you come back energized and wanting to say it can be done differently.
International partnerships, the key on your side.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ambassador.
Yes, I would like to see focus on quality lifelong education for all, especially taking up the issue of the girl child and mass literacy, because these two issues are the precursors or the predictors whether a country will be able to achieve EFA or not. Secondly, this goes to the audience. I would like to see that each of the workshops or parallel sessions, at the end of the day, come up with one project that is sustainable, so that when we look back, it wouldn't be that we had this gathering and that nothing in terms of projects or partnerships come out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let me just quickly whip through those. Firstly, we heard universities, autonomy required in the university system, empowering of students. You managed to get your second one in there, Professor Amin. Thank you very much. And then Mariam put forward the implementation of the guidelines as set out by the President Task Team on Education that was inaugurated on the 5th of January 2011. We then moved on to partnerships. Professor Obanya putting forward partnerships being crucial, investment in education, and getting the education house in order. Is that appropriately summarized, sir? We then went on to the measuring of the results from Dr. King. Measure the results of the Nigerian education system so that you can track them, see if they're taking effect. Alex wants to declare a state of emergency when it comes to the quality of teachers that are being hired into the system, and we need to get the best brains into the system. Paul is saying, look at international partnerships to gather information, to gather momentum. You don't need to rework issues that have already been established or worked through. And then the ambassador has said, focus on quality, on lifelong education. Take the girl child into consideration, and perhaps most importantly, find one sustainable project, which is what I'm hoping we're going to do, from a session such as this to implement. Minister, I think let's start with you before we get a final word from the Honourable Vice President.
Well, what I'm going to say is it would be out of place for me to say based on the recommendations. I'm going to have my boss rather. It is not in my place to say that this recommendation is the best one we can take now. I think I'll leave that for my boss who seated here. But to make, but to make one suggestion to add to what they have said. Of all these recommendations, nice, good, very, we all lead to the improvement of education. But one major factor, if we don't have it, we can't achieve it. And which, as Mr. Vice President has said, the political will. And I do believe, and I do know very well, that this government has the political will to implement on these recommendations. Take for example, on the issue of quality of education, if we do not have the political will, we cannot be releasing the amount of money we will for teacher capacity. And we can't also release the amount of funds we are releasing for tertiary education. As regarding to implementing proposals, if you don't have the political will, you cannot implement any proposal. So that would be what I will add to all the recommendations they've made. And I can assure you that this government has the political will and sincerity to implement any of the recommendations that we made here.
Thank you very much. Honourable Mr. Vice President, the floor is now yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I agree with the recommendations that have been made. They are very good and clear recommendations. And I highly will appreciate this forum by the Nigerian Economic Summit. It's really apt that we are having this discussion. All of us have agreed that we are having open and honest discussion, which we are not doing done before. This is the first time we are having this type of dialogue. Not only us here, we are involving all the world to partner and participate. We are very lucky today in Nigeria that we have a president that was also